Morning, surprise share. I was wondering whose tefillah is more powerful, Moshe Rabbeinu's or yours? And I actually had an answer here regarding a question I brought up not too long ago about, we know that the merit of the Egyptian forces appearing as this angelic force, the ministering angel of the nation of Egypt, and it was generated by the cleaving of horse and rider, which represents intention in prayer. Sus v'reichwe ramavayam, horse and rider, exalted on the sea. The sea, of course, being an allusion to the hidden world, because it's covered over. Kemayim liyam lechasim, like water covers the sea. So when the Jewish people came to the sea, they had 4 war strategies, which you see these armchair military leaders amongst us with all their opinions and approaches, because these are serious things, and why would the president know better than you? So your conversations are important in a way, but typically we have to look to what the Torah says on things, and then you've just engaged God in the conversation himself. So at least look at the words and reflect on them, and then your opinion is so much more grounded, because you could argue either way on anything. Let's face it, a good debater, welcome. A good debater flips sides when he's losing. Like a good chess player, you flip the chessboard around, and he takes you and he beats you much faster than you thought he would. So whose prayer is more powerful and endearing to God? Moses, or the Jewish people themselves? The Egyptians had this force created from their belief in their divinity, and their misguided views were embodied in this unified force. Good morning. Yeah, it's just a surprise share. Hopefully it can become a good habit. So they had the embodiment of their animosity and their pursuit of the Jewish people in their angelic ministering angel that governs their nation, produced by their prayer, by their belief, by their emotional response, and turning towards what they think will give them success in life. The Jewish people, did they daven? Did they daven to the same degree? Why did we need Hashem to fight our battle here? Why couldn't we have just fought them? I have 2 interpretations that says that the tefillah, that the Jewish people, one of the 4 opinions of what to do about this threat was to just pray against them. What does it mean, against them? So one opinion says that this is calling to mind nitzvah kenegdam, we will cry out against them. Why doesn't it say nispalel lelakenu, alav? We will pray to him. Why does it say that they cried out against them? Teaching us that just like warriors, when they go out to war, they start screaming their heads off to instill confidence in themselves and, of course, terror in the enemy. So they would scream out while they're fighting or beforehand to have that advantage. So it's a form of warfare, in a sense. Another interpretation, they were Shemas HaKadosh. They were going to say divine names, which means they got into an intense spiritual state and connection to God, and therefore their words, thank you, are powerful, the Rebbe says, in actual circumstance. So in this case, they're using Shemas HaKadosh. But the Rebbe says this approach is not descriptive of the 4th and final of the 4 views about what to do about the Egyptians pursuing them at the sea. It's rather the third view, which is to wage war against them. Face your enemy, wage war, or pray to God, which could mean, not here, we're ruling out the idea that that means that you're going to use it as a weapon, weaponized prayer, but rather just simply, welcome Dana, just simply this connection with God, this dveikus the Rebbe describes here, that you're elevating yourself to a frequency where there is no opposition. The Egyptians chasing you is just so you can look fancy in your X-Men outfit. Well, the Rebbe says here to show the power of God in the world. So God makes a conflict to show that his chosen is going to be victorious over that threat, and therefore his glory and ours and everything is good. So I'm setting this as a showdown between the Egyptian sus verechle, horse and rider. The rider being the sus is the horse, is not the rider, the horse, sus, is the ability for you to communicate further. So you can take in those days the postal service was by horse, not just the RCMP. They went on horses to get the message out further and faster. So the person, the rider of this horse, is the intent that you put in your words. Words communicate. The intention, your spiritual, or you're just simply your emotional injection of those words with force as the rider. So my question was, and here's the answer to it. You stick around for a few minutes. Did the Jewish people beat them in the showdown, or did God just simply rig the whole thing for them? Did they have the power of prayer greater than the heathen nations cleave to their thing that they put on the pedestal, whatever they worshiped, whatever they thought was magnificent in the world, and they would pursue it themselves and use this as their excuse for it, because they just put this thing on the pedestal and say, that's what it does, so I could do it too. That's what they would do. And it was just simply a debate about which God will win. So that is basically the worship of self. If you decide what the values are, you're worshiping yourself. How do you know you got it right? Maybe you have some trauma built up from previous generations. So the Jewish people, who in contrast believe that everything has integration. I'm not going to decide. There's something called the Torah, which is considered the channeled wisdom of God, and therefore it has nothing to do with my personal choice and decision of how everything integrates and who sits on the top of the pyramid. But rather, this is an order of 613 paths, or 620, the crown. I'm going to integrate it in such a way that that's descriptive of a good life, and I didn't decide what it is, and therefore it's monotheism. Everything has a place. Everything comes together in a unified unit. So did the Jewish people connect with that force, and therefore we won? Or just Moshe told them in the name of God, Vatem tacharishin, you be silent. You don't even need to pray. The answer, the way I'm understanding this huge, beautiful, brilliant discourse in Hadron on the Masechtas Banecha, Brachos, Nazir, Yavamis, and Krisis, and the Rebbe ties them into perfectly with this approach of four on the sea. How these four tractates reflect the same ideas, and it's an order of progression and how you fight and contend with the enemy. You don't have to fight them. You don't have to engage them. You don't have to run away from them. You don't have to engage them, not by trying to beat them up and not by trying to beat them at their own game. You could elevate yourself to the frequency of called nitzvach kenegdam. We're going to cry out against them. We're going to simply elevate ourselves above any possibility of conflict. That's called prayer. That's what prayer is meant to be, not just saying some words and, yeah, I did my duty today. It's embarrassing to me, that approach. I think that's embarrassing. It's good of maybe a 3-year-old. Prayer is meant to be an experience of your maker. It's supposed to affect you. You're not supposed to say it the same way every time because that means you're not even doing anything. It's supposed to be a unique experience, a journey like you would sit down and watch a movie and be exhilarated. It's supposed to be that engaging. If you don't have the imagination, then maybe you are in the right place in Netflix to develop some kind of observation of life and therefore the desire to actually live that life. Maybe Netflix is the best place for everybody then. So whose power won here? Moshe says, "Vatem tachrishin," you be silent. You don't even need to pray. The Rebbe says like this. I'm just going to give you the overview of it about how we're going to relate to the answer. Is that yes, there was a purpose at the sea for us to go across the sea to receive the Torah and be free men and not to be told what's important in life and be enslaved to do that. But choosing to accept the Torah at Mount Sinai gave us the ability to not just deal with conflict, but to transcend it completely. The question is, Atem Tacharishan, you just be quiet. Hashem will fight your wars. Is that something that's applicable today as it was then before the receiving the Torah? The Rebbe says it's not so. It's not Batem Takrishan. You just be silent. That was specific to that moment when God wanted to show his love for the Jewish people without their merit. So they had to be quiet. Today, you cannot be quiet. It's not Batem Takarishim. It doesn't apply anymore. You're not supposed to be silent. You're supposed to be engaged and vocal. I'm going to read this to you. I hope you listen. I just want to read what you wrote first. They used practical Kabbalah to fight with names of God. Yes. But I don't think the point is that they knew how to pronounce Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's not the point. The point is they reached a certain frequency where they actually manifest control over the well-being of their enemy. So it's smashing it like warfare. So the Rebbe includes that form of prayer as warfare. It's not talking about what it's talking about here as the fourth approach, which Moshe tells him that Tacharishan, you be quiet. It doesn't apply anywhere. After the giving of the Torah's discussion of this war room discussion is now 4 paths in being active in overcoming your enemy. That they're eternal teachings of the Torah that apply now, since before the context was to get the Torah, God wanted to show his love for us and how he's preparing us for the whole thing. Now that we have the power through the Torah, we have to do it ourselves. Atem Dakarishim does not apply. You are not meant to be silent. So the question is that just for Moses, the holy people? Here it says, Shakol Shavim Betfilo Lifnei Hamakayim. Every single person is equal to God when it comes to prayer. Moshe and you are on equal ground because Moshe's his plateau is a little bit higher and the same is expected of him as is expected of you. You're not supposed to say when my deed is going to be like Moshe, but when are my deeds going to be like you, Zusha? I want to read this to you. Don't really have time. Maybe I'll do it fast. And from this, it's understood from like 20 pages of information. I hope I just condensed for you. That these 4 approaches to dealing with adversary in your life, what are you going to do? Are you going to jump into the sea and run away? Are you going to return to the land of your bondage and try and engage your enemy in such a way that you transform them and you gut it more of the spoils of that country, the land of your bondage, and take it out to become free and your work towards a goal that you decide? Or are you going to wage war and try and nullify your enemy completely? Or are you going to simply pray to God And that's not seen here as a duck out, because then they wouldn't have been told to be quiet. That was the duck out. Moshe was telling them, you just stand back and watch the show. Here we're saying that that's only so before the giving of the Torah. Now that we receive the Torah, that's a mission, that's a lesson forever. You do face your enemy. How do you face it? Sometimes you just face it by vibrating at a frequency where you just don't register. I just don't care about your agendas. I'm not interested. I have my own thing to do. Don't worry. You're good. So the Rebbe has a discussion about Moshe himself had all these doubts of what to do. He went through all these things himself. And he was like forced to tell the Jewish people, don't do anything. Don't you think you have to fight? Don't you just go forward and watch the show at the same time. So Moshe Rabbeinu was in the same boat, and therefore, which category did he actually choose of the four opinions? V'ulai yesh leimer, says the Rebbe, sheMoshe mitzarat ha'yishayach yakita she'amra nitzvach kenegdam. The Rebbe says, it seems that Moshe Rabbeinu was in fact part of the group that says we shall cry out against them, as we explained. Lispalo lakadosh baruch hu, but here interpreted to mean just simply to have dvekus to God, just to vibrate faster, not to even use it as a means of warfare. We see in the Torah itself says that God told Moshe, why are you crying out to me? This shows us that Moshe stood up and prayed. So God tells him, this is not time to have a lengthy geschmack davening. It's not time to engage in a long time spending on prayer, because this is the moment for something else. As he himself is told, the four responses to these four groups. After the Jewish people and the exodus from the Egypt, Pharaoh himself comes running after them. He says he brought himself, he pushed himself to be valiant in battle. So the Jewish people all cried out to God. So Moshe himself began to daven before God. Thank you. Why are you standing and praying? My children have already done so. They already prayed. Far hispalalu. Tefillah means to connect, like you solder. You connect two things. They've already connected with me in such an intimate way. What are you doing thinking that you have to daven for them? V'shemati tfilos, and in fact, I've heard their prayers. Shenamar mati tzakalai. As it says, God had to tell Moshe, why are you crying out to me? I've heard their prayers. V'ad shetfilas Moshe shavel tfilasel shel Yisrael. We see, in fact, that they are equal. Moshe's prayer and the prayer of every single person. Moshe kasev v'schilas inin sham mati tzakalai ha'odamar shemet tefila hakadosh baruch hu. This shows that Hashem is the one that listens to our prayers. I call shavim lefonav. All are equal before Him, since it's God Himself. Even Moshe Rabbeinu, compared to God, is the same. You're on the same footing. Teida lecha sharei Moshe rabban shel kol hanavim. Know this is so because Moshe, the master of all prophets, kasev by Moshe kasebani. It's written about him what is said about a poor person. So he's equal to the poor person. Ein ani ela b'das. One is only said to be poor in terms of mindset. Regarding Moshe, it says, prayer of Moshe, the man of God, and with regard to the poor's prayer, it says, prayer of the poor person when he puts the talus over his head and gets down to business and to davening. Before God, he pours out his words. This is prayer, Moshe, and this is prayer regarding every Jew. Lahadiacha, to teach you, to make you know, da'as, shakol shavim mitfilah, that all are equal in prayer. Lifnei hamakam, before Hashem. Have a great day. Let me just read your comments. I won't be quiet. Good for you, Heidi. Do these 4 levels of prayer, I only meant to say that there's 1 level of prayer and 3 interpretations of what that is. Is it 2 forms of warfare, which is just simply injecting fear in the enemy? They're just, the phoenix thing or screaming out. Or is it Shemas HaKadosh? You are just in a state of Vekas, but that Vekas has power, and the Rebbe proves that at length in this incredible hadron, the Sicha. It's a hadron, Siyum. Or is it simply, as the Rebbe says here, vibrating in a frequency where you just transcend the whole thing? You're just into a different thing. You're just not part of the whole rat race. Okay, of the 4, there's 4 approaches to how you contend with your enemy, how you bring peace. The Rebbe says here is the emphasis. Of the 4 things Yaakov Avinu did when preparing to meet Esav, that would be a great comparison. But were there 4 or 3? He prepared for war, prepared by giving a gift, and prayer. What's the 4th? Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you. Stay blessed, and God bless you all. Have a great day.